Will you stand with me as we read the gospel? Today's reading is from Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30. For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them, and made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had the 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I've made 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You've been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one with the 2 talents also came forward, saying, Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what's yours. But his master replied, You wicked and lazy slave. You knew, did you, that I reap where I did not sow, and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with the 10 talents. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Well, I feel fairly safe in assuming that for most of us, if not all of us, this is a pretty familiar story. The parable of the talents is one that we tell in the church a lot because it's a fairly compelling story. And it's a fairly straightforward lesson from it. God is incredibly generous to us, and we are to do something with what God gives us. Jesus is drilling down on this one even more so in this section of Matthew's Gospel, because the story we just read is part of a longer speech that Jesus is giving right before the story of his crucifixion and resurrection. This particular parable is the third trio where they're all doing the same thing. You start with the parable of the faithful and unfaithful slave, then to the parable of the 10 bridesmaids, now to the parable of talents. All about God's generosity and our responsibility. And then it leads straight into another passage we know pretty well where Jesus describes the Last Judgment, where human beings are separated off into sheep and to goats according to what they have done with what they've been given. Jesus is spending this portion of Matthew's Gospel telling us in no uncertain terms, God is generous with us and with the world. And also in no uncertain terms, we are given a great, huge responsibility to do something with what God has given us, to make the world a better place with what God has given us. Okay. That's what Jesus is doing in the parable. We've all probably heard this one before in Sunday school or Bible study. We've probably heard sermons preached on this. So instead of me standing here for the next 10 minutes and giving the same sermon we've heard over and over again, I'd like to do something a little different this morning. Given that we know what's happening, we know the lesson of the result of the story, I'd like for us to drop down into the world of the parable for just a few minutes. Walk around in there. And just to ponder, just to ask some questions about why certain things are the way they are, and to wonder together, what if? What if this or that thing had gone a little bit differently, and just see where we go? Does that sound good to everybody? Okay, cool. Oh, a couple of you actually said yes, right? Okay, so here we go, dropping down into the world of the parable. We have this very rich person. We'll call him Dave. Dave has got a lot of assets, and he has got 3 slaves or more charitably servants who handle his business for him. Now, just for the sake of argument, let's call these servants Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. Alvin, Simon, and Theodore are very faithful servants. They do their thing. One day they're sitting around minding their own business, singing a song about how they want hula hoops for Christmas. And all of a sudden Dave shows up, says, "Hey, guys, I'm leaving on a journey. I've liquidated all my assets. Here you go. Go. Big checks. Bye-bye." That's it. No instructions. No timetable of when or even if he's coming back. Just, here you go, your stuff, I'm out. It's a very strange encounter. So that we know what happens in the story. These guys all go about their business on their own. Alvin got the biggest check. He's got the 5 talents. And Alvin's he's into sports. So he invested in a new NFL franchise. Great investment. That stuff prints money. He doubles his money real quick. Good job. Simon is very smart. He's very into the tech world. So he goes and invests in the latest social media app. And why in the world we need another social media app, I have no idea. But he invests in it. Doubles his money. Good job, Simon. But then there's Theodore. And Theodore he's not sporty and bold like Alvin. He's not smart and savvy like Simon. He's kind of timid, kind of cautious and shy. Maybe it's because Theodore is the youngest brother, and having these 2 big personalities, his older brother's kind of stunts his growth. Or maybe it's because he's very pragmatic and he sees, I got the smallest check here, and I have less to work with, I have fewer risks I can take, and so he's just being a little conservative on it, being very pragmatic. Then again, maybe Theodore sees Dave more clearly than the other 2 do. Because after all, his excuse at the end when he comes back and he hasn't done anything with it is, well, I know you're a harsh man. You reap where you don't sow. You gather where you don't scatter. He knows he'll be in trouble if he loses the money, so he's playing it safe. We don't know why, but that's what he does. And when Dave finally comes back after a very long time, Alvin and Simon's entrepreneurial nature is rewarded. Theodore's cautiousness and timidness is condemned. Now, so there's a lot of whys in the story. Why did it go the way it did? How is it that Alvin and Simon knew what to do somehow and Theodore did not? Is there a chapter on investing in the servant training manual that the 2 read and Theodore skipped? Is there something innate about their personalities that makes some more likely to take these risks and others to be more cautious? Possibly. Could it be that Dave is a really poor manager? He just doesn't give instructions. He just says, here you go, have fun. I'm going to judge you on some unexpressed criteria later. That's also possible. Again, we don't know. We see the way the story rolls out. We see that each of these guys went about it on their own. and prospered or failed individually. But what if? What if they didn't go it on their own? What if in that moment when Dave rolls in with the big checks and says, "See you later," and after Alvin, Simon, and Theodore get over the shock of this massive amount of money in their hands, they don't get up and go their separate ways. They stick around. They say to themselves, "Wow, look what we've been given here. We got individually, but it's our master's money. What if we work together to see what we can do with this while he's gone? What if we succeed or fail as a group? What if pooling their own talents and skills and personalities actually help balance each other out?" Because, after all, Alvin, he's pretty bold. He's going to make a quick decision and go for the big profit, but he might not think everything through. So Theodore's cautiousness might pull him back and keep him from making a big mistake and losing all the money. Because, again, they lose all the money, they're in big trouble. Or what if Alvin and Simon look at the size of their checks and say, "Wow, we got a lot of money to play with here, and Theodore didn't get, it's still a nice sum, but not all that much. We didn't get it based on anything we did, just gave it to us. What if we all worked together? We actually had a responsibility towards him because he didn't get as much. What if they decided they would succeed or fail together? To share all the hardships and the joys of the journey. And what if when Dave returns and he sees all that they have done, that they've done more than they could have ever possibly done individually? What if all kinds of creative potential is unleashed by their teamwork, and they more than double, maybe even triple or quadruple their master's fortune? What if they remember there's money they're having to work with in the first place? What if? Asking what if in the world of this parable then leads us to ask some other what if questions about our own world. What if more of us look beyond our own portfolio, our own individual standing in somebody else's eyes, and said, hey, the resources I'm given could be small. They could be substantial. What if we looked at the resources, the gifts and talents of those around us and said, hey, how could these complement one another? How could these work together to make something greater, a whole greater than any of us could have achieved on our own? What if? You know, in this congregation for years, we've been talking about the possibility of a daycare center to care for children of lower income families while they work. And when we built this new sanctuary, we designed the children's area downstairs with that kind of thing in mind. But recently some folks have begun to wonder, what if? As we've grown our relationship with the Johnson Elementary community and the Hard Bargain neighborhood, some folks have begun to wonder, what if? What if we didn't have to house that project here in our own building, but we actually worked with the communities we're trying to serve? To put something right there in the middle that's more accessible, and combine our resources and their own resources and gifts and make something even better than what we could have done here. It's pretty early on, but some really exciting ideas and dreams are beginning to come out of just a couple folks beginning to ask that question, what if we included more than just us? Many of y'all also know that our family was involved in the ministry of foster care for many years. And we took a break for a little while because we welcomed our son Jonah into the world, and now that he's a little bit older, we've been thinking and praying, okay, God, how and if do you want us to get back into this ministry? And as we've been thinking it through, the big obstacle we keep coming up with was, gosh, while we had foster kids, we felt like we hadn't developed a big enough support system of folks to walk with us through this journey and to help us out. It often felt like a lot of things were on our own shoulders, and that's our own fault for going it alone. But last week, when Lenore was preaching and challenging us, asking what seeds of faith for the future does God want us to plant here at Christ UMC? Oh, if Jessica was sitting there and she started to wonder, hey, what if instead of our family going it alone, there was actually a community, a number of families here that all got trained and certified as foster parents together and acted as that community of support for one another to have play dates with kids, to share babysitting duties on those nights you have to go to trainings or just when someone needs a night off. A community of people to be there together through this journey, because it's hard. Navigating the system with the DCS, it's tough. Dealing with the pain and brokenness of families who struggle up in foster care is hard. And having people together who are on that same journey, who know where you are. What if we didn't go it alone as our own family, but invited others into the journey? Yeah, it's just been rolling around in our heads for a few days. What if? What if Alvin, Simon, and Theodore had looked beyond their own portfolio, their own standing in front of their master, and said, guys, we might be stronger together than we are apart? What if they pulled their resources and their expertise and their gifts and talents and made something even greater than what even the most talented investor had done on their own? What if they remembered whose money they were playing with, who they were working for, and set their own egos aside and made something greater as a result? I know that's not how the story goes in the Gospel of Matthew, and yet I can't help but thinking that is the sort of thing that Jesus might want us to do with our own gifts and talents. Amen?